up to them, but I'm sure that something else and nice is going to happen. In a way, every story what we read in the Old Testament is part of the big Exodus story, how God liberated his people from slavery. Whatever we read in it about the Jewish people, we can see that God helps, even if it's not the final liberation, but he always offers freedom and support. We know the biblical meaning of the image of the bronze serpent, which was lifted up in the wilderness. We Christians, looking back in salvation history, we immediately recognize the sign of Christ as a symbol who was lifted up and died for us on the cross. Yet this image is so challenging. It remains challenging. We can ask, why is it that the image of redemption was fashioned in the image of the harmful, venomous, fiery serpents? That the one who brings salvation has the same shape as those deadly serpents. Why is it the same shape which brought so much death and suffering to the people? Why not something else? So what is the meaning, the challenging meaning of the story for us? At first sight, the main theme is the people's disobedience to God. On the way through the wilderness, the people lost patience. They spoke against God and Moses. And indeed, when the venomous serpents came, they immediately connected this misfortune with their unfaithfulness to God. Surely it is not God's nature to punish, but they recognized that they failed in a serious way. They rebelled against God, and that brought upon him misfortune and illness. This recognition is important for us. If you look at the upheavals of our world or society, and just think back of yesterday's protests in London or elsewhere, what happens is that people don't make the connection between their present state and their sins, that we rebel against God. The love of God, the renewal of our ways begins with this recognition. But still, we are puzzled. Besides this biblical and spiritual meaning, why the same image? Why the redemption is bearing the same shape, the serpent? We have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Intercede for us with the Lord to save us from these serpents. Make a fiery serpent and put it on a standard. If anyone is bitten and looks at it, he shall live. Why is it such a powerful image of healing? The world, their journey remained dangerous in the same way. The serpents did not disappear, still they attacked them. They kept threatening and hurting them. Perhaps here we are invited to contemplate the nature of our salvation. Not so much the actual form, but how salvation comes upon us, how redemption and liberation is experienced in personal life, how as individuals we recognize the presence of our Savior in our walks of life. This image has a very personal message. Normally, we don't choose the place where we live. We are born into a culture, into a family with its traditions, into families with its shortcomings. We are born into economical situations. We are given our health as it is. Some people have very fortunate genes, some don't and are prone to illness. Some people find themselves to be refugees, at least at stages of life. Some experience bereavement. Some lose their children prematurely. Some are happy. Some are successful, the same in their marriages. Some are not. Many people find work satisfying, their relationships fulfilling, but many don't. These circumstances, like the serpents, bite. They can wound us. But it is through these dangers and life situations through which we see life. In my understanding, that's why the image of suffering, the serpents, and the image of redemption, the symbol for Christ on the cross, bears the same shape, the serpent which heals. It is the same. But if it is these sufferings is our only window, one can be determined by these experiences. Living in an ugly environment, sometimes which feels as lawless streets, suffering from daily physical pain, can make one bitter in life. But this is at the heart of today's celebration, the elevation of the cross. That we Christians, through our faith in Jesus, we always have a second window. Redemption comes through the same imagery of life. God teaches us to face our life as it is, but He chooses the shape of the same serpents which normally bite us. And this is a powerful encouragement that redemption, joy in our faith, joy in personal life, joy and fulfillment in our professions are waiting for us where we are. At least they are starting from where we are. What a powerful teaching it is about the nature of our redemption. What we see, what we experience is not our only window on reality. We can recognize how God's love, which transforms our vision, is at work. When we go on holiday, and the holiday is restful, we start seeing the world differently, more positively, more relaxed. And when we return to our places, which might not be as satisfactory and beautiful the places where we visited, we feel a kind of shadow passing and covering us. But that's the nature of redemption, that we have the ability to see beyond the framework within which we live. We can recognize how God's love is at work. God comes to our liberation where we are. He teaches us to see His Son being lifted up in all life situations. We can see what others, people who at the moment live without the gift of faith, can't. As we read, so Moses fashioned a bronze serpent, which he put on a standard, and if anyone was bitten by a serpent, he looked at the bronze serpent and lived. If you open your second window on life, fresh air, God's life will come in. And as part of your Christian love, if you open that window for someone else, the person will have a chance to live in a fuller way, to live fully. And opening this window is very simple. Perhaps the simplest is when our friends are asking us, what are you going to do at the weekend? Just start with, on Sunday, I'm going to go to church. Even if it's a neutral message for someone who is not practicing, it's opening up a window, showing that door through which you enter in and week out. We look at our serpents, even our fears, and live. This search of God's beautiful look, in exchange, will transform our reality. Those things which are difficult at the moment, including difficult relationships, can slowly change. And seeing God's kingdom, Jesus, our personal Savior, our companion and the guide of our eye and heart, is already what a change in our lives.